Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the one and only and amazing Anna Kelly. How you doing, Anna?
I'm doing great. Always good to be here with you on Wednesdays.
Yeah, thank you so much again, folks. She has an amazing playlist, 3 years in the making. You can actually go back to when Anna was working. Yes, she was
Yes.
working, and then we talk about the day she retired and the day she became the original millionaire guest on One Rental at a Time. So thank you so much for all this time.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure.
So a lot of the times we get together, we just pull out, the latest news. And I don't know if you just saw it. It just literally just hit it because I didn't talk about it in my daily financial news, which goes live at 7:30. We're speaking at 8. So it happens sometime in there. OPEC is going to cut 2 million barrels of oil. So I'm going to bring up the article. So we're talking about the same thing, but I want you to kind of gamification of this. How does this ripple through our economy? How does this ripple? Does it make the Fed's job easier, harder? There's lots of things going on. So let me know what you think.
Yeah, I've been talking about the fact that even if inflation comes down somewhat, inflation for energy, food, and housing, which are the core, areas that we spend, are going to continue to rise, and in part because of the energy crisis that we have overseas with gas and oil. So I was quite surprised today that they're actually going to start cutting 2 million barrels per day, which is going to do what to oil prices? It's going to make them go up significantly at exactly the time that everybody is hurting. So shocking to me, quite frankly, that they're doing this. It's going to cause energy prices to continue to go up. But I believe they're essentially trying to cut exports and allow more production here.
I think there's a couple of things, right? First and foremost, just like the 1970s, OPEC is their own entity, right? We can influence, we can cajole, we can bribe, we can do whatever it is. But it's these nations that make the call on their own. And obviously they don't like $80 oil. They much
Right.
prefer over 100. Obviously on this article, they're talking about getting it to maybe perhaps as high as 120. But this is, frankly, if you play chess, this was a predictable move, right? The U.S. Decided a few months ago to start having 1 million barrels coming out of our strategic reserves to get gas prices down at the pump because we were tired of seeing, Instagram posts about, hey, look, you did that or he did that or whatever it is. And it worked. Gas prices came down. National average was over, I think it was over $5, now under 4. I don't know why California is the exception because we're over 6 again. It's like 6.5. It's crazy. But
Right.
this was a predictable move. I mean, OPEC didn't like that. And, I'm sure they're taking 2 million barrels out on purpose, right? Because again, it's a US one and they're taking more out of that. And I kind of think my first thought is Europe. Oh my goodness. And then I think about what the hell happens to us when we have to go rebuild our reserves. I mean, eventually you got to fill it back up, right? We can't leave it empty.
Right. Yeah, it's really challenging. And I'm not going to pretend, Michael, to understand exactly how this impacts every country by country, because I don't know that, right? But what I do know is anytime that you're cutting production, when we need more energy, we need more oil, it's going to harm anyone that needs that oil. And so when you look at Germany, who already had Nord Stream pipeline cut off by Russia, they're in a real crisis where they've got to go back to figuring out how to use electricity. They don't have enough wind to produce wind energy, and now you're going to raise the cost of oil as well. So it just, I'm not sure why they would make this move. I haven't been able to really think through what are the reasons that they think this is justified, given our already, global economic crisis that's unfolding.
Yeah. So when I kind of look at this as because again, I'm first and foremost a real estate guy. I occasionally look at stocks, although I'm trying to get better at that. But as a real estate guy, I go, okay, great. Less oil, demand, oil's going up. Oil is a component in headline inflation. This cut, assuming it goes through, which again, this could be posturing. Who knows? Nobody knows. This is literally came out in the last 30 minutes. and can be reversed clearly. I look at this and start thinking, well, it's already getting cold in much of the country. It's going to get colder. There's going to be real concerns in Germany and much of Europe. And I'm like, man, we just can't. I mean, Jerome Powell can't catch a break. Talk about trying to whip inflation, and suddenly, a main producer cuts supply, which is going to push prices higher. And again,
Right.
what we learned last time, or I've learned many times, is oil is an input cost to so many things.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just going to say is we're talking energy, but the reality is the cost of everything that has to be moved from one place to another to deliver goods is going to go up as the transportation costs go up because of oil prices going up. So this flies in the face of trying to fight inflation. It's just going to make inflation worse, and
around the world.
And so it's just so interesting to me to watch world leaders make mistakes that are going to make it more difficult for the Fed and central banks around the world to balance, a high probability of inflation becoming embedded and higher over time, as well as a deep global recession. So when you add, it's like throwing dynamite in a bonfire and making it, 10 times worse. I just never cease to be amazed at the next thing that no one thought was going to happening and going, oh, great. Well, how is this going to change what we think the Fed is going to do, what they have to do, right?
Yeah, that's the key, what they have to do, right? There's a lot of talk, even if you saw the stock market Monday, Tuesday, there was talk of Fed pivot, Fed pause, Fed cut, all this nonsense, in my opinion, at least in the short term, right? Rest of this year. And then you get this today. It's like, nope, there goes the Fed. They can't pause now. And again, oil is in everything. And it does not. And again, I go back to our talk, and we'll probably make this video number 2, the 52-year spreadsheet. This has kind of happened before. Mm-hmm. And I believe oil was the shock that led to consumers, you and I, demanding wage increases. Unions got big wage increases, and thus salaries or wages became the thing that was sticky, and across services and other things that caused companies to raise prices, and hence inflation was a decade problem, not a 4-year problem. It seems like it seems like inflation is going to be here longer, stickier, for much longer than expected, assuming this doesn't get reversed quickly.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that although the Fed can't come and say, you make too much money, we want to kill your wages. That's exactly what they're feeling they have to do. Because if wage inflation becomes embedded in a system where we're already struggling with some of the lowest labor participation that we have in history in our country, you have fewer and fewer people willing to work. They want higher and higher wages at a time that companies can't afford to really pay them because people are no longer wanting to spend with those wages. So they do not want wage inflation to become sticky or embedded in the system. And that's part of why they want to try to, slow down, the economy and increase unemployment and hope that there's less worker ability to demand higher wages at the same time.
Yeah, and just to kind of close out this conversation, I don't know if you saw it, but ADP report came out today. Not only were jobs numbers higher, the number I'm watching is wages. Wages were 7.8% higher. Might have been 7.2. I think it was 7.2 higher year on year. And if you quit, you got a 15% raise. Those numbers are too high for the Fed. That's what the Fed's afraid of. Right. That becomes sticky, entrenched. And we have a year. People are expecting this Fed pivot, this decline to come in months. This could be years of a battle.
Yeah, it's really challenging to see which way this might go, and I think as real estate investors primarily, I'm kind of going back to fundamentals that says while all these things are changing that make us go, now what is this going to do? Or what is this going to do? We really don't know because we've got 2 battles that the Fed is fighting at the same time. 1, high inflation. 2, really trying to keep us from going into a deep recession here and abroad. But all of these little things could cause not just recession, not just mass inflation, but they could cause financial system crisis. So we're already seeing, and we talked a little bit last week about currency problems, the US dollar being so high and what that does negatively actually for us and around the world. We're seeing potential of credit defaults as asset values come down and are unable to service debt payments. And now we're seeing, a crisis of high inflation in housing, energy, and food that may be here for some time. And so, I'm just saying, back to the fundamentals, Michael, buy recession resilient assets, inflation resilient assets, hold them for the long term, right? You cannot be in the game of flipping houses right now, in my opinion. You buy rentals in strong areas that are going to best weather either high inflation, give you those better jobs to make more money, or best weather recession that's going to still have a lot of jobs and opportunity during that time. And that comes down to really knowing your markets, knowing which markets are going to do best, whether it goes one way or the other. And so, again, we always in these things with don't get afraid, but know what's coming and say, how can we best hedge? And then look for opportunities that are going to help you to preserve your wealth while you're still hoping, to grow it over the long term.
I love that entire message. We're going to end it right there. Anna, where can people find you?
Great. You can find me here every weekend on my playlist on YouTube, on your channel, and you can find me on social media at Anna Kelly REI Mom and my website at reimom.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.